Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we've got probably one of the first sort of consoles that Nintendo put their name on. This is the model CTG BK6. It's called the Kuzushi. Kuzushi. So what we're going to do, these are only RF out. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an AV mod on it. Very hard to find information on these things because they're quite old, I think 1979. But we'll do an AV mod, but I'll just give you a quick look at what it looks like with the RF signal, and then we'll do an AV mod on it. Okay, so I've got it hooked up to the TV here. I've actually tried tuning it in just before, but it's not working. The picture comes on, but then it just disappears because it's not very good. But I'll give you a quick look at what it does. So we'll just do auto tune here. Do OK on that. And you'll see the picture does come up a little bit. There you go. That's it. That's the best I can get. So it doesn't even stop there. So what we'll do is we'll pull this thing apart and we will find out how we can do an AV mod on it. Right, got it on the workbench here. Quite simple, these things. They've just got Phillips screws in the back. Got 6 of them here. So I'll just pull those out now. Right, we've undone those 6 screws, so we'll just flip them back over. Actually, we can probably just remove, we won't flip them back over, we'll just remove this piece. The back, look at that, it comes off like so. Put them aside, and then we've got a pretty basic setup. That's the whole thing there. So what we will do is we'll unplug these little bits. It's the power, and then we've also got the dial there, and then we've got the switch over here, the push button. I'll just unplug him as well. There we go. And then what we'll do is we've only got 2 other screws here. I'll undo those 2, and then that'll give us, most of the board will come out from that. Undone those 2 screws now. So now we should just be able to lift this out carefully. We've still got the little ribbon cable attached here. So what I'll do is I'll undo those 5 screws, and that'll give us this little button assembly out, and that'll give the whole board away from the main front. Right, I've removed those 5 screws, so all we've got to do now is flip this back over carefully, and we've just got to remove these little bits here, the sliders, and they just pull off like that, and then that should give us access to that. And now we can put that aside as well. Okay, one thing we do have to do here is we do have to remove this old the old RF cable. So we just got to get our soldering iron on, just unsolder those 2 bits there, and then pull it out. I'll do that now. Right, now that that's done, that's off, just pull this through here. There we go, that's freed all that up. And what we do need to do is we do need to remove this out of here. But what I might do, actually, just to keep it tidy, I'll just snip it, because then it just keeps that little grommet there as well. There we go. We don't need that, but we do need that. That just keeps that tidy. So, right, now we'll look at the parts we're going to need to modify this board. Right, we're going to need a few bits for this, and I've already been down to the shop and bought everything I need. And so what we're going to need is we're going to need one 330 ohm resistor, one 10k resistor, one 100k resistor, one 2.2k resistor, one 22k resistor, and one 27k resistor, as well as the following capacitors: 220 UF, one 4.7 UF, and one 2.2 UF, all rated 16 volts or higher. And we're also going to need some RCA jacks as well. And because we're working on the Kuzushi unit, we're going to need an extra 10k resistor. We also need a couple of transistors, PNP and an NPN one. They're just run-of-the-mill ones, a 2N3906 and a 2N3904. and we also need 2 silicon diodes, 1N4, 148. And this is just to build the amplifiers for the audio and the video for this unit. And I'll show you where each one of these things go. And we've got to remove some stuff off this as well. And I'll show you which ones we remove to get this thing to go. One of the first things we've got to remove first, we've got to remove these 3 resistors here. So I'll do those. And then I've got to remove this thing here and the green one as well. So I'll remove those 3 and then I'll remove those 2 and then we'll go on to the next stage. Right, to remove those components, we also need to remove this resistor here. So I'll pop that one out now, and we need to remove this capacitor here as well. So I'll pop those 2 out. Right, another capacitor we've got to remove is this one with the yellow top there. So I'll just pop that one out as well. And another one we need to remove is this resistor here. But we just need to swap it out for one of the ones that we bought. So I'll just pop that out. Seeing 2 more I've got to remove. I've got to remove this capacitor here. And I've got to remove this resistor here as well. So I'll pop those out. Right, that's all the components removed. I know it's a few, they're all in here, but once they're all removed, we can start replacing items, and some items we don't actually replace, we just leave off. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the 2 diodes. These are the 1N4148s. We'll get the 2 diodes. I'll show you where we install them on the board. And of course we need the second one because we've got the Kuzushi unit here. So I'll show you where those go. So of course the diodes have polarity. You can see that. Got the black line on it. So one of them goes where we remove the resistor from here. And it goes with the black line at the top. So I'll pop that one in now. Right, that one's in place. I've soldered that in place. And the other one goes here. And it goes with the black line facing this way. And it goes in these 2 holes here. So if I put it in there, there you go. So it goes in there. So I'll solder that. Oops, there. So I'll solder that into place now. Right, now that we've done that, we now have to flip the board over. And what we need to do is we need to get a 10K resistor, which I've got here. And that needs to be soldered from that point there to that hole there on this side of the board. So it's just a matter of just poking that through and then just soldering it onto that point there, onto that one there. So I'll do that now. Right, flip our board back over. And so what we'll do now is that resistor we removed, where am I? That resistor I removed from here, the 75, we put a 2.2K resistor in there. So I've got that one here. And so I'll just pop that in and solder that in place now. Right, next thing we'll do is we'll get our 330 ohm resistor, and we're just going to solder one leg onto this point here, onto that point there, and we're just going to leave that out like that because that's going to fold around the board and go onto the front. Right, next step we're going to do, we just need to get a piece of wire, and we need to solder this piece of wire onto that point there. If you can see that, to that little solder point there. So I'll just do that now. So as you can see, I've got the wire soldered on there now. I've got that resistor soldered on here. So they're both going to go on round to the front. And we're going to start looking at the components that are just going to sit over here separately, that are going to be the amplifiers for the video and the audio signal. Because pretty much we've done everything on the board we have to do. And these are just going to be the separate components that are going to sit there. So I'll start building that up next. Right, sorry about that, my phone went flat, so now we're back. So I've just found there's one other piece I do have to solder on as well, and I have to solder a wire onto that point there. So I'll do that now. And what we do have to do too, we need a common ground point. So I'm going to use that little pad there, that one there, will be our common ground point. So I'm just going to put a blob of solder on that, because a couple of wires will have to join onto that as well. So all we'll do is we'll just put an extra blob of solder on there just to prepare it. just get it ready. Done. All right, let's get on to the next stage. Right, next we get our 2N3906 transistor, this one here, and we want to spread the legs like so. And then we want to put the middle leg through that hole there. It feels like there's solder on the bottom. No, there is too. That one there, so just put that in. And I will just put a dab on that and push that through. Right, so that on there, like so, with the writing facing that way. What we need to do now, this resistor we soldered on earlier, we need to just flip that over, and that comes around and that joins onto that leg on the transistor. So I'll put a blob of solder on that and do that now. Right, next we want to get our 220 UF capacitor and get the negative leg, bend them out, and get the positive and bend them out as well. And the negative leg connects to the same solder point there that we just soldered the resistor to the transistor. So I'll solder that on now. Right, that's done. So that's our positive for our video output. So that's sorted. So what we'll do is I'll cut a couple of bits of wire shortly, and the positive output will be from here to the RCA video out. Right, so I've got the wire for the video out. So what we'll do is I'm going to solder the positive onto that leg, and the negative goes onto that pad that we soldered at the bottom there. Right, so the negatives on that pad, positives on that leg. So that's the video output sorted. Now we've got to do the audio output. This is a little bit more of a complicated little process, but we'll get onto that stage now. What I will do is I'll just get a little bit of Captain tape there, and then just put some tape across here just to protect all of this. I'll do that now before I get onto the next stage. Actually, one thing I did forget to do was the other side of the transistor. So this wire that comes from underneath gets soldered onto that leg of that transistor. So I'll just tap that on now. Right, that's soldered on there now. I will leave that open at the moment because some of our audio stuff will have to solder onto that point as well. So let's get onto the audio stage. Right, for this stage we'll just work on the audio components here. So first thing we need is the 2N3904 transistor, and what we want to do is we want to spread the legs on this one like so. Push that middle leg back, and then we've got a 22K resistor, and this resistor needs to go across the middle leg and this left leg. So I'll just solder that in place now. Right, I've done that. So I've cut that leg and just bent that one over, and now I've got a 10K resistor, and the 10K resistor connects to this leg of the transistor. So I'll just solder that on now. So now we've got our 4.7 UF capacitor, and we get the minus side, which is this side, and the minus side connects to that point as well on the right leg of the transistor where the resistor meets. Right, now we've got our 27K resistor, and that one connects to the middle leg there. So I'll just solder that on now. Now I've done that, these two resistors then join together. So I'll solder that leg onto there because they go to a negative 9 volt feed on that side. Right, and now we've got our 2.2 UF capacitor. So bring the legs out, and the positive side goes to that point there. But what I will do is I'll shorten it just to make it a bit easier. So the positive side just gets soldered on there, so I'll do that. Now lucky last is our 100K resistor, and that goes onto that leg. So I'll shorten that one, and I'll tap that on there. Right, I know it looks a bit of a mess, but it'll all make sense when I put it on the board. And the last thing we need is a little short bit of wire to connect to this leg here. just so it can just go under the board to that little ground pad that I soldered earlier. So I'll just solder that on. Right, that's all done. So we'll grab our main board back, and this little intricate piece will sit somewhere on here, out of the way. I'll just work out where, and then I'll show you. So I think what I'll do is I'll probably sit it here, because these resistors need to connect to that point there. So I'll solder those on, and then we'll work out the rest. Right, that's soldered on there, and now this wire, this other wire that comes from underneath, needs to connect to that leg on that resistor. So I'll just trim that up and solder that on there. Right, that's that piece that's soldered onto there. And then what we need to do is this wire needs to come along and solder onto our pad there. So I'll probably just bend that up and just tack that on there. And then we're done. So it's on there, which is good. And what I'll do is I will just get some of this tape here and just tape all this down. And all we've got left to do is this leg from this capacitor, which is our audio positive feed. Right, so I've just attached another wire here for the audio positive feed to that leg of the capacitor, and just put some tape down. And then all we need to do is flip it over, and the negative side of that wire just needs to go to this pad with the other one as well. And that is all our wiring done. I mean, it looks messy, but once it's all together, you know, we've just got our two outputs, video and audio. And once it's all together, you won't even see any of this. One thing you do need to make sure before you put it together is that it's switched up to two channel, not one channel. It won't work if it's on that switch there. So we switched it up to the 2 channel. But what I do have to do now is get the base, and we're going to have to put our RCA outputs, which I'm probably just going to put across the bottom here. 1, 2, 3. Just drill through the back of there, and that'll be our connections for there. So I'll just go and do that in the garage, and I'll be back. Right, so I've done the holes in there for those. But what I will do first is we will put this back into the front piece and get all this back together, because we've got everything done on it. So I'll just do that now. Right, so I just put the 5 screws back in for that plate, and then we just put this back over here, set that in place, and just the 2 screws that go back, one there and one there. So I'll just do that now. Right, that's done, and then we just plug these back in. So we've got that one, and then we've got that one there. So that's that done, and then we'll just tidy this up. So that's our 2 feeds for our audio and video. And we'll just flip that over, and we'll pop these little things, just push back on. Done. Cool. So that piece is pretty much sorted. Let's now go on to the bottom piece and wire up these. Right, so what I've done is the 2 earths I've just soldered together for the audio, and I've just pre-tinned everything. And then because it's only a mono output from the board, I will join the right and left channel together here, and then just the one feed will just go to one side, and at least we'll still come out both speakers of the TV. So I'll just do that now. Right, so the first one we'll do is our video feed. So that just goes to the yellow one. So I just tap them in there, tap them on here. And the next one will be our audio feed, and we'll just tap it onto one side, just here. just put the earth on this where these two join together. And that's pretty much done. So everything's done. So what we need to do now is we just need to button it all back up. Just gotta put the side panels in, put the screws in, and then we'll go and test it. Right, we're back in the garage. Excuse the background noise, the washing machine's on. But so I've plugged it in, plugged in our AV puts, got the power on, ready to go, TV's ready to go. So let's see what she does. Oh, look at that. You can see it still has a little bit of video artifact stuff going on, but that picture compared to what we couldn't get before is way better. Let's see if she's... Oh, hey. Yeah, that's awesome. It's a pretty basic game, but you know, 1979 would have been the rage, as I remember it was. But yeah, I hope that was informative for you. I know I sort of rushed through it a bit, but what I will do is I will list all the components in the description below this video, just so you know what bits you need if you do have one of these and you do want to make it into an AV mod, so at least you can use the thing. It's just so good. But yeah, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, doing videos every week, and I'll see you in the next one.